welcome to my channel. So today I'm talking about The Midnight Club, which is a new series that premiered on Netflix this weekend by the one and only Michael Flanagan. You know him from The Haunting of the Hill House, Blind Manor, Midnight Mass, which is one of my favorites. And this is an adaptation of a book series by the same name from Christopher Pike. Now, I'm not familiar with the book itself, so I can't compare the series with the book. But I heard that Christopher Pike was inspired by a fan letter of this girl that lived in a hospice, and she and her friends used to meet every night at midnight to read Pike's books. So he dedicated the book to her and named the main lead of the series the same name as the girl, but unfortunately she passed away before the book was ever released. The Midnight Club, we have 10 episodes. Each episode's about 53 minutes. And so you have, what, if I'm doing my math correct, about 8.5 hours of binge time. But in all honesty, I didn't think this was very bingeable compared to other Flanagan shows. I watched 5 episodes in one day and then watched the rest of the 5 episodes the next day. Here we have 8 kids, and then there's 10 episodes. So I was like, okay, 8 kids. Usually the first episode is to introduce everyone. The last episode is the big twist finale. And then 8 episodes in my head was, okay, so each episode is going to be one of the kids telling a story, or it's going to be one kid dying every episode. But gladly, it was, each kid is telling different stories every episode. And they're telling the stories for a reason. For us and the other kids to get to know each other, to let people in, and also I think for emotional release. I think if you're watching this video, you already seen the show, but I'll give you a little bit of how our story starts. It starts in 1994, and we have Ilonka, this bright, very smart girl. She's on her way to go to Stanford. Is it Stanford? I think it's Stanford. It's one of like Ivy League universities. She's at a party, and then she coughs blood. Goes to the doctor. She's got thyroid cancer. And then she goes through chemo, nothing's working. And then she goes on the web, as they called back then. No Google Schmoogle back then. She goes on the web and finds Bright Cliff, which is basically a hospice for terminally ill kids. And she finds a story about, what's her name? Oh my gosh, Julia Jane, who went to Bright Cliff and somehow her, got healed from her cancer, like her cancer gone. So Ilonka once, convinces her dad to take her to Bright Cliff. I thought this series was going to be a scary one, but I thought to be very heartwarming, funny enough. It was about friendships and bonds and dealing with death and grief. It has very emotional moments because you get attached to these kids and you don't want them to die. Also, ghosts are nothing compared to what these kids are going through, like I said, with death and grief. The jump scares here didn't land very well for me. Some of them felt forced, and most of them were very predictable. Like, that shot when the actor, it's actually like the camera is zooming in, the actor, it's walking backwards, and then a mirror appears. Like, something, it's gonna pop out of that mirror. And maybe because this is a show more towards young teens than adults, or maybe because I don't get scared that easily. Like, it takes a lot for me to have a jump scare. I always remember one that really stuck around with me. It was The Haunting of Hill House, when we have the two, remember we had 3 sisters and then 2 brothers, Luke and another one, like the writer. But it was Theo, Nell, and the other sister. I can't remember her name. But it's the older sister, Theo in the car. They're looking at each other and they're having an argument. And then Nell's face, like that Nell, comes in between them, like, ah! That one I always remember. It's like, oh my God, it was awful. Maybe Michael Flanagan did this on purpose because he broke the record. He's actually on the Guinness record of the most jump scares in one episode. on episode 1, I think he just wanted to like get it out of the way. We had 21 jump scares, and I think the record was 14. So he broke the record. He's got a plaque and everything. And I read an interview with him that he said, I did that because I don't like, he actually doesn't like jump scares. And he said that I don't want to put jump scares in any more of my shows. And if somebody asks me to put a jump scare in an episode, I'm going to point out to episode 1 of the Midnight Club and said, hey, you got 21, that's enough. I'm glad there wasn't a lot more jump scares throughout the series, because that meant that Flanagan focused more on the details of the stories. He uses different genres to each storytelling, which makes them a lot more effective. On that note, I said that the show is about friendships and bonds, but it's also a lot about storytelling. And they're so great because each one of them, it's very different. And once again, some of them, it's not even meant to be scary. There was a couple of them that reminded me of Black Mirror, like a Black Mirror episode. Not as good as Black Mirror, because Black Mirror is right here. Also, if you think Stranger Things, it's an ode to the 80s, The Midnight Club is an ode to the 90s. From the soundtrack, what was the songs? I actually made a list. There was Glycerine by Bush. Hope You Had the Time of Your Life. That's by Green Day, right? Yeah. Blind Melon, No Rain. It came out on the credits. And someone was saying that the songs that he picks to put on the credits had something to do with the episode. Blind Melon, No Rain, here's a line that's like, and all I can do is just smoke some tea for two. And that was like the episode that it was all about tea and healing. And I remember there's a line on that song that talks about like drinking tea. And I was like, oh, okay. And then one of the kids is gifted a PlayStation. If you notice in the bedrooms too, there's a poster for Days. Oh, give it to me. For Dazed and Confused. And then there's another poster for RoboCop. And also the nurse that's played by Zach Gilford. He is treating, oh my gosh, it wasn't a mesh. It was the other kid, the kid that has, oh man, I'm gonna spoil it. He's treating a kid. He's trying to convince the kid to watch Interview with the Vampire. And then he said, one of my favorite movies. And he said, there's Tom Cruise and there's Brad Pitt. I know. But Armand, it's Antonio Banderas. And I was like, yes, no one remembers. Do people even remember that Antonio Banderas was in Interview with the Vampire and he was like a hot Armand? Anyway, I love that little shout out to Interview with the Vampire. And one of the things that I didn't think was very 90s was their costumes, their outfits. They didn't feel that very 90s to me. They actually felt more contemporary. As any Michael Flanagan shows, the set design, it's beautiful. Remember the houses of the Haunted Hill in Bly Manor, how beautiful it is, like the set design. Here, Bright Cliff, that library, I just want to walk around the library. And then when the fireplace is lit, and the hallways, and then the cast. All the kids, I thought they did a great job, especially the girl that plays Anya. The kids were all great, so I can't like point one over the other. But as any Flanagan show, we do get our repeat favorite actors. We get Raul Coley. He was a sheriff in Midnight Mass. Oh, he was so good. He had that like little monologue of his. Ooh. And then he was in Bly Manor too. Samantha Sloan, which that was the one that we loved to hate at Midnight Mass. Remember her? We have Henry Thomas, which he was a nice surprise. I didn't know he was going to show up. Zach Gilford. He played Riley in Midnight Mass. I was hoping for Hamish Linkletter to show up because I love him so much. He's like one of the best actors out there. Remember he played Father Paul, I think, yeah. In Midnight Mass. And I almost thought that the janitor, he's the one that cleaned the room after a kid dies. He's the one that makes the bed and cleans up the room. I almost thought that was Hamish. It kind of looked like him if he was in a fat suit and like makeup. But when I saw the credits, I saw janitor and it was a different name. Speaking of that janitor, he had some really interesting dialogues with some of the girls, a couple of the girls. After Tristan dies, Natsuki, which was her roommate, she's there while he's making the bed again. And he tells her it's very ironic how people fear death more than they fear pain. And he asks her, do you know the Doors? And she's like, yeah, I know the Doors. And he quotes Jim Morrison. And Jim Morrison said that death, it's a friend. Because when it comes, it means the pain, it's over. He has a nice conversation with Ilanka too when, oh, I almost spoiled something. Whoops. Okay. But I will talk spoilers right at the end of this video, and I'll let you know. I'll give you the heads up. Another actor who's a muse of Mike Flanagan, it's Kate Siegel. And she was in Midnight Mass. She was in all the Haunted Hill and Bly Manor. I love her. And I was just disappointed not to see her. But I think, because I recognize her voice, she has this smooth, silky voice. I think she narrated the episode called Give Me a Kiss, which is Sandra's episode, the episode of Black and White. I think it was Kate Siegel narrating that. One thing that also disappointed me is that I didn't see a lot of twists in the Midnight Club. Okay, I'm gonna head into spoilers, okay? So if you haven't finished the show, go watch it and then come back here. I gave you a warning. As soon as Shasta, you know, the red hair, long hair lady, walks into the forest and talks to Ilanka, I'm like, that's Julia Jane. Come on. That, like, we knew that it was so obvious that that was Julia. I still think that Dr. Stanton, it's someone's, you remember when Julia, we go to 1969 and Julia goes to, was it Athena's house? The older woman? Or Assisa, or she was Athena. I'm sorry, like I can't remember like the names of the, you know, the 5 sisters. But she's saying, I found this book. And then Athena's talking about her daughter, that she doesn't have much contact with her anymore. Like her daughter wrote her off. So I'm like, is Dr. Stanton her daughter? Because that would make sense as far as like age-wise. But at the last episode, when we see the doctor walking, you know, in the hallway, there's a paper cut of this couple who build Brightcliff. And I was like, it's Jordina Stanton, the doctor, Vera? When the show ended, I thought, okay, I'm okay with this ending because you can draw your own conclusions. But I heard that there is going to be a season 2, so that's interesting. But then I'm thinking that at the last Midnight Club meeting, we used to have 8 kids, and now we only had 6 left. Anya's gone, and then Sandra, she leaves because apparently she's cured. They're talking about the empty seats at the table, and he says, there will be new faces to fill in the seats. And I was like, oh, okay, now I can tell, you know, maybe like on season 2, they will bring new characters, new kids. I am wondering what will happen to Ilanka because she's leaving. She's going back home with her dad. So what will make her come back to Brightcliff? And then we have that last shot of Dr. Stanton taking off her wig, and you see she's bald, and she has the hourglass tattoo on her neck. Remember Shasta, she has it on her wrist. And I thought it was so smart that they chose the hourglass to be the paragon symbol, because an hourglass symbolizes time. And what's the one thing that money cannot buy? Time. And what is the one thing that these kids want? It's time. They want more time to live. On the subject still of Dr. Stanton, remember when she finds out that Sandra is healed? She's on the phone with someone. And she's really taken back, and she's like shocked and sad that, you know, she's like, I'm sending one of the girls home. Who is she talking to on the phone? Another question that I have is that, you know, they talk about the folie à deux. It's when 2 people see the same, like they go crazy at the same time. It's almost like a Joker and Harley Quinn. But here it's Kevin and Ilanka. They're the only ones that see the older people. There's an older man and then the older woman with the, the milky eyes, as they called, which I think they're the founders of Bright Cliff. Another thing that I noticed, and I don't know if it made a difference on the show, on this one, different than the other Michael Flanagan shows, he only directed 2 episodes of the Midnight Club. I think there was only 2. And on his other shows, he usually directs the whole thing. I enjoyed it. It wasn't, like I said, as bingeable as his other shows, but I cannot wait because his next show will be The Fall. Oh my gosh, what was the name? The Fall of the House of Usher. And I was looking at the cast. It's stacked with his favorites. And it says that Kate Siegel will be in the House of Usher. But what did you think of the Midnight Club? Did you enjoy the show? What about the book? Have you read Christopher Pike's book? Do you think the show did justice to the book series? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you like this video, please make sure you hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and also hit the little bell notification button so you don't miss any future videos. And I'll see you next time.